Welcome to the Be a Human in Business show with your hosts, Tracy Borison, founder and personal branding coach at TLB Coaching and Events, Tara Argo, founder and relationship strategist at Argo Operations, Tawana Taylor, founder and project management consultant at Bootstrap Dreams, Debbie Aquara, founder and principal consultant at Niche Customer Experience Consulting Firm. Let's start the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of the Be a Human in Business show. Before we get started, we're going to send our hearts out to our friend Miss Debbie, who will not be joining us again today, but I'm sure she'll have some empowering comments on the recording once we release it, as we have a really great topic today when you think about being a human in business. And really it comes down to like being a human in general, and how we're really just not meant to walk alone. And there's so many different pieces in our life where I think we kind of, I don't know why we do this, but we're like, oh, I don't want to bother people with my feelings, or like, I'll just figure this out. I can figure this out, right? And there's so many times where we try to do it ourselves. And whether it's that we don't want to bother other people, we're not sure how to find that network of people that is going to be supportive of us. I think I've heard a lot in the entrepreneurial space specifically that people also, they have family members and things like that that don't support what they're doing and aren't really aligned with their dreams. And it's hard. It's hard to work in that place. And a lot of times we try to just be like, oh, well, I'll just do it, right? Like I'll just handle it. And I know specifically for me that like has never worked ever. Me trying to figure out how to do it myself has 0 times ever worked for me. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. And I would love, Tawana, I would love to hear your perspective on this, because I know that you speak a lot about surrounding yourselves with people and that we're not meant to do it alone. So I would love to hear you share some of your thoughts.
Yeah. So for me, it goes back to literally, pun intended, being a human, right? We were not designed to do life in isolation. Our decisions are not isolated. I don't care how independent we think we are. I don't care how self-made we think we are. Sometimes I don't care how it's just me, and I'll just do this and I'll just do that. Like, nothing is isolated if we're really being real, if we're really looking at life in the full scope of what it is. And I understand that it's really hard for some people to do that. Yet we're just not created to be isolated. We're not created to do life in isolation, brainstorm in isolation, strategize in isolation, like none of it. Go for opportunities in isolation, interview yourself and hire yourself. Yeah. Okay. Like the processes that we do in life, whether they are personal or date yourself. Yep. You can do that and you'll be with yourself, right? And that's okay. We're not saying that being with yourself is wrong, but you don't have to be alone or feel lonely, right? Like they're not synonymous. So when you allow yourself to not be alone or not live in loneliness, that means first and foremost, yes, reconciling with self that who you are, your individual being, you matter, your voice matters, your ideas matter, your values matter, your mission, your beliefs, all those things are important, and that you have to be willing to stand by them, right? And then you also give yourself the flexibility to be encouraged and inspired when something else provides you an influence, and then you decide you want to shift a little bit or do something differently. That's okay. When you go forth to do these things in the way that you're living and that you love and living a life that you want to lead, it doesn't mean that you have to be the only one. That's a part of it though, right? And just because you're capable and competent also doesn't mean you have the capacity, or acknowledging that, you know what, I have the capacity and the capability, but my competency is kind of short in that area. I could start it. I'm really sure I could finish it, but it's going to take me a long time because I'm not proficient, right? And so giving yourself permission to seek people to do life and to do business in community. I talk about 3 C's often: converse, collaborate, and celebrate. If you do those 3 things, whether you do it unintentionally or strategically, I come from an administrative background, so I don't see things as just willy-nilly. Nothing just happens in my world, but that's my head. That's the way I think. Nothing just happens. So when you're moving about life, when you're conversing with others, and then you co-create opportunities with others, whether it's to have brunch, whether it's who's going to take care of the child while I'm on Zoom now, whether it's a vacation, or a marriage, whatever the thing is that you're trying to accomplish, when you co-create it together, it's meaningful to you and anyone else who shares that interest with you. And then when you celebrate, acknowledge one another with what you're doing, with how you each show up and the individual contributions and how collectively they make that thing thrive, worth leading and living. That's what builds community. That's what really brings the value. And I want to go down a rabbit hole, but for me, there's a huge difference between building community and creating an audience. They're not the same. They're not the same. So I choose to do life in community.
We could probably have a whole episode on that one.
Oh, we could have a whole episode on that one.
Yes.
Because
audience versus community, they're not the same. And I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I think something that I want to piggyback off of you, Tawana, about is that COVID has taught us that I've never in my life seen so many people say how lonely they were until they were forced into isolation. And that right there should tell us that human beings were not designed to do things alone. I think people are starting to shift a little. Not everyone, don't get me wrong. Not everyone has come around to the idea that, that technology, I love technology, don't get me wrong, because it wouldn't allow us to do what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But in reality, we still have to learn to build human to human connections and relationships, which is my love and where my heart is. But mm-hmm. I think that COVID did teach us to move forward and to go, okay, and start to make us to realize, because I think we were down, if you want to call it a rabbit hole, whatever. We had really kind of turned away from that, it seemed like. We didn't know how to connect. We didn't know how to even call people. It was like, oh, well, I'll just text people. And then whenever we were forced into that isolation, it was like, oh my gosh, I miss my family. I miss my people. I miss, all the things. And so, I'm hopeful that is going to help us learn how to reconnect with humans. So I wanted to bring attention to that. But two, I agree that when you're building a community as well, that you do want to be surrounded by people that can support you, people that, are not, I'm not even saying like influential. It's just that people that support who you are as a person. So oftentimes we have those people, not that you're not going to have people that are negative within your networks and within your community, but you have to be really careful with that as well, because sometimes that does bring us down, which that's just life. So it's part of what we have to learn. And that something else that I want people to remember is that not everybody does community the same way. Not everyone builds relationships the same way. I realized, and I had this conversation with a lovely lady this week, that she and I were talking about diverse networks. And, I'm really big about building a diverse network because I think it's very crucial. But she said, Tara, I'm an introvert. I never want to build a huge diverse network like you, which I totally understand that. She said, but that's why I have friends like you, because I'll build the network that feels good to her, and the relationships and the community that feels good to her. And then she relies on people like me that is more of that super connector, and that's really my specialty. And then she plugs into people like me. So that's why I wanted to really bring attention to the fact that not all of us are the same. So extending grace when we're in that, I think is really crucial as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is a really important point in that. So I always see this in relationships. I don't know if you guys do, but like you look at someone else's relationship from the outside and you're like, how can that possibly work? Right? Like this person is so this and that person is so that, and how can that possibly work together? Right? And I don't know, like maybe people have that opinion about my relationship with my husband as well. I don't know because they don't tell me, but every single person, like you said, Jared, builds relationships a different way, and different relationships look different from the outside. And I know when I was younger, I would tend to judge people based on that. Like, what is that? That's never going to work, right? Like, meh. And now I know that I embrace the fact that everybody does things differently and everybody thinks differently. Like, that's actually beautiful. That's the beauty in humanity. And that's also why we don't have one big community of 8 billion people, right? Like, because there are subsets of people who do things different way, have certain values, have certain beliefs, and that's what people base community off of. And I just got out of a week-long boot camp this week talking about how to lead with your personal brand. And one of those things is looking at your values and creating a space where people who share similar values can show up and be celebrated, right? Like, I love your 3 C's, Tawana. That is great, because the type of people, like, the reason why we collaborate together is because we have similar values, we have similar beliefs. And if somebody came on this show and was like, you should never be a human, we would be like, get out of here, because this is not what we believe. And it's not because what you believe is wrong, but that's not what we believe. And so this is one of the things that I speak really heavily to, is being able to show up with those values, because that's what people are going to connect with fastest. And that's what allows you to build that community that does reflect you and allows you to show up as your true self as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's thinking about, like, when you talk about building community and it not happening the same, and giving grace, and, you know, choosing to show up in whatever meaningful ways that you want to show up. All of those hinge on the concept of, what is my relationship with that thing? What is my relationship with that person? What is my relationship with the timing? What is the relationship with, right? Whatever present elements or variables or factors, you know, that you have to consider. It's all about the relationship between them that causes you to move, right? To make a decision, because we don't act on ideas, but we do act on decisions. And so that causes you to move into the direction that's going to promote perhaps the idea that you had through action, right? And then we talk about influence and negativity. Like, we could so easily go down at probably an episode on that to define them. Like, I was the project consultant where the company culture would say, oh, we don't want that person, they're so negative. I'm like, that's exactly the person I want on the team. Why? There's a reason why you think they're negative. There's a reason why they don't agree with everything that you've presented. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make you more right. There's a reason. Let's identify what it is. They have something different to present. Will it be a benefit, right? So sometimes we can allow connotations to limit us in our ways of life, in our ways of connectivity, in our ways of living, and also knowing the functions, right, that we feel personally and professionally. Like Tara brought up that there's a woman in her network, introvert, so she's not going to build a big community, but she relies on Tara to do so. That's Tara's function in her life, and that's okay, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with the fact that she doesn't want to build a big community and that Tara does. We each do things differently. Sometimes I feel like within a space, if 2 of us are doing the same thing, one of us may be unnecessary, unless we need more than one role, because the impact of what we're trying to do, the reach is more than what one person can handle, right? So like in relationship, friendships, marriage, business, whatever, everyone has a function. And in some way or another, there's sharedness. A lot of what we do, though, is diverse, is different. Because if we're all doing the same thing at the same time, think about all of the things that aren't being accomplished, right? So I love that, we're able to acknowledge that differences are a benefit.
They really are, Tawana. These are really, really great points that both of you guys have brought up. And I think for me too, it's about a mutual respect, that even though we may not do things the same, I'm very much about respect and honoring that and grace. And as we just said, another thought is I think it is crucial. And the reason I like my network to be more diverse is that I like diversity of thought and ideas, right? So I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything, but you know what? I know people that know other things. Like I just got off of a call with a gentleman who's from Egypt who was a PhD researcher. We started talking and it was like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? Mm-hmm. That's not my wheelhouse, but you know what? That's why I have those types of people in my network. That's so right. Those are the things that we have to think about, when we're not meant to walk alone. And this is something else that I want to say. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I just can't put that much energy into it. That's okay too. Maybe it is that you just want to connect with people when you want to connect with people, and that's once a month. I mean, I don't know. I know that sounds silly, but then you do what works for you. If that's too much energy out of you, each one of us is different. I know for myself, when I used to go to in-person networking events, when I was done, I would have to come home and sit in my recliner for like 1 to 2 hours to decompress. Very much, I've always been more of an extrovert, and that's like my wheelhouse, but it even is a lot of energy for me to expend because I'm giving everything that I have. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that and knowing what works, and, and I identify in my relationships when I'm building relationships a lot of times too, I know if that person's going to be more of a friend that I can confide in, or a potential collaborative partner, or that maybe they're going to just be a good referral friend, that, they have people in their network they're going to need my expertise. Mm-hmm. So I really know what my relationships look like. And that may be strategic, but really, to be honest, it's just about building a relationship with that human being and seeing where we can help one another. Where can I serve? And that's really kind of my opinion on that, is diversity of thought and idea as well.
Yeah. That's super.
And I think there's an interesting conversation here too on balance, right? The concept of people balancing other people. And I think about, like, with my husband, this is something like, I'm type A, extrovert, go, spend all my time, sleep when you're dead. Like, this is what I was like when I met my husband. And he is like very chill, is good at taking breaks, right? Like, and I learned that from him. I had the opportunity to grow as a human because he was different than me. And I was open to not just, this is the way to do it. And I will tell you, it has been critical in our parenting, because no two people will parent the same way. It doesn't matter how closely aligned your values are. And like, I'm not meant to walk alone. I need that, but I'm also not meant, as much as I like to be surrounded by people who are thought leaders and are ambitious and things like that. Like, I need to be balanced as well. And I was on my phone because I was trying to find this image. Someone posted it on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago about your personal board and like who sits around your personal boardroom table. Mm-hmm. And when you run a business, or when you get to a business of certain size anyway, you have a board. And most often it's people who have skills you don't have because your skill set is already represented at the table. I don't need to have 8 other personal branding coaches around my table. It's useful for me to have one other person who has different opinions than me, but it is also beneficial for me to have people like Tawana, who is like way more strategic than me, even though she's trying to always convince me that I am strategic. But she sees things strategically, and I don't see it. Like, I've had lots of people call me fluffy. Like, I see things in feelings and things like that. And sometimes it's hard for me to turn it into a tangible thing. And that's why I need people like that around my table to balance me out. I need people. I had this really cool conversation with one of the other ladies in the Your Business Peeps community about being an extrovert versus being an introvert, and how that feels and how that manifests in networking and all those different things. And it was so insightful, I'm sure, for everybody, for her to hear from my perspective, like, this is what it's like to be an extrovert. Like, I think everybody just thinks like extroverts have it easy. You don't have to try. You just have to show up. And I was like, dude, you know how many calls I book on a day that my son is at his grandparents' house? Because I like to be on the phone. I like to be on calls. I do. I like to talk to people. I like to meet new people. I will do that for 8 hours. I don't think any human can do that for 8 hours without being tired, right? Like, and then I'll go teach cardio dance in the evening, and then I parent until 9 o'clock. Like, I don't take a break. I'm not good at taking breaks. And whereas she was saying like, oh, well, I know that I'm an introvert and I get exhausted after one call, so I always build a break in between. And I was like, maybe I should do that. Mm-hmm. Having those insights can really help you grow as a human as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I put breathers all over my calendar. That way I have the option, right? I have the option to take a break after a period of time, or I have the option to delete it and put something in that period of time. When I don't give myself that privilege, I am not a nice person. And I don't want to deal with others because I know I am not a nice person. And it's no one's fault but my own, because I did not give myself the option to breathe, right? Just doom, 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 doom. And I share that sentiment. Like you said, you see life in feelings and creativity, and I see things strategically at the same time. We still have the same need, right? To exist in the best possible way. And that is figuring out what do we need so that we can show up so abundantly, so robustly, deliver, right? The thing that we promised that we would deliver the solution that the person is seeking of us so that they can make an informed decision, right? Because we don't tell people what to do, but we advise them and usher them to their value, right? So like, what is it that we need to show up? So as we, continue to usher this conversation about not being meant to walk alone, what are some ways, Tara, Tracy, and of course, I'd love to chime in briefly, but what are some ways that we can give examples? Because it might be easy for us, but there are some people that are like, I still don't get it, or I'm too afraid to ask for that. What are people going to think? If, I'm so used to doing things a certain way, how do I do it differently? What can I do? What would be some ways, Tara, let's start with you, that we can, share on how you live, you walk, but not alone?
Yeah, so I've been writing notes because as I get excited because all this is like so like my love. So I think you do have to become self-aware to an extent because you have to know what you need. So for me personally, and I know Tracy does this, and I'm not sure if you do it either, Tawana, but I know that like on weeks that I'm just needing some additional, I don't know, I have friends that give me different things. And when I say things, I mean, they make me feel better in different ways. So if I'm like, yes, they have a role, just like you called it. So they have a role. And for me, if I'm needing that, or I'm really down, or I've got things going on and I'm just really stressed, or I just need to talk it out, I reach out to those specific people and say, hey, can we have a chat? I need what you give me. And I may not even be able to identify it, but I can promise you, if you were to sit down and look at your different relationships and the different connections that you have in your current life, whether that's family or business, they play a role for you. And so if you're needing them, you just reach out and do it. And I know it's like, Tara, you're that extrovert. That's like normal. That's you. That's what you do. Guess what? It's what everyone can do, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Any person can do that. It's because we need to be filled, right? We need to be filled up. And so I say, become self-aware to where you know what you need. And then at that point, you can reach out to the people that can give you that.
Tara, before you add something else, can I just add something to that? Because something that I think people quite often forget. So like, all of us, and I know a lot of people in our networks are people who are helpers, right? They love helping people. And like when I get to show up and help, when someone calls me and they're like, I need you to talk to you, I love that. I have been the person who has like totally brought my whole family from like to here. And like, I feel a sense of accomplishment when I do that. And when I don't ask for help for other people, I am not giving them the opportunity to show up in that capacity. that's a mindset shift that really helped me, is that I get so much love from this. Am I actually taking that away from other people by not giving them the chance to help me? Like, what am I doing to my husband by not asking him for help? I am taking something he loves to do, take care of me, away from him. It's not really fair. No. And it does take practice. It's practice before you get comfortable doing it. But like, there are so many people who do just want to help people.
They just want to serve.
Let's let them help us.
That's right.
That's such a good point, because my husband, he's definitely one that's like that. He's always like, for instance, on Memorial Day weekend or any holiday, he always makes ice cream with all the kids. He loves to do things like that, to serve people in that way. And it's usually around food, but that's just his deal. And I'm like, whatever, if that's what he loves to do, let him serve in that capacity. It makes him happier. It makes the kids happier. They create this beautiful memory that they'll never forget. So I'm glad you said that, Tracy, because I think that is really crucial. Another thing that I was thinking of when you were sharing about your husband and how the difference is very similar in my world, is I'm very much the loud one, and I do my own thing, and I'm just very much the extrovert. Barrett is the opposite, and thank God for that, because I don't know that we'd want to, live together if it weren't that way, because he really balances me out. But what I was thinking when you said it, 20, you were asking for examples. What if we started looking at our friendships and our relationships as if that person has something like that calmness, or that they know how to take breaks. We don't know how to do that. Why don't we start adopting some of those things that they're doing? Because the reason the reason that you love them and their energy is because they're giving you probably that thing, right, during your time with them. And so if we were to look at our friendships and our relationships in that light and say, wow, Tawana is so good at strategic stuff, maybe that's what I need to start asking her questions about, things like that. Or, whatever it is, those gifts and talents that they're using, utilize those, ask those, help them come over into your, into your space, because again, that's probably why you like them around. And then
the ability to receive.
Yes, which is hard.
Energy.
Yeah.
It
also
very, very
takes
hard. Practice.
Lots of practice.
I don't think I quoted it yet on this show, but one of my favorite things to say is practice makes permanent. Because I don't believe in perfect. So it doesn't matter how hard you practice, you're not going to be perfect at anything. But when you practice skills, and again, like, we don't think about these types of skills. I'm thinking about if I'm a basketball player, I'm going to practice dribbling. I'm going to practice my free throws. I'm going to practice things to get better at them. But quite often on the soft skill side, we forget that it takes practice. Good listening takes practice. Asking for help takes practice. And in order to do it, I'm not going to get any better at shooting a free throw at basketball if I never take the first shot. Right. So you have to do that. And I know, because Tawani said, some people are stuck. They don't know what to do. You have to try a thing. You have to try something. And if something doesn't work, if it feels bad, if it feels like, oh, that's not me, I would never do that. You don't have to keep doing it, but you have to do something. And then those things that feel really good for you, seriously, you guys, I recently learned how to take a break. I'm 37 years old. I recently learned how to take a break, and it feels so good. And now guess what? I'm getting better at taking a break. Because I'm
just learning it too. So it's crazy. I think those high achiever selves. And one other thing I wanted to point out real quick, Tawana, is become genuinely interested in people. So for me, that's what I tell everyone: become genuinely interested in people, and that will help you work that muscle, right? So at the end of the day, our time on this earth is very, very short. And when I leave this earth, I want to know that my relationships and the things that I've built was in relationships and in humans versus everything else. So be thinking of that, be thinking of how can I become genuinely interested? And it's simple, guys. You can create little questions. Like for me, I always ask, where are you from? Create questions when you're talking to people and have them in front of you until it becomes a normal thing for you. Say, every time I get on a call, what am I interested most in about people? Ask that same question. Do those little things, and then it gets easier and it gets easier, and you build beautiful relationships out of that. Sorry, I had to say that.
It's just so funny because whenever I meet a new person that is awesome and I tell Tara about them, she's like, where are they from? And I'm like, I don't know. That's your question. not my question.
I do ask that.
And then I realized, like, crap, I never know where anybody's from. I just like look at your LinkedIn profile or whatever and see where you live. It's not my question, which is fine, but it's so funny because Tara always asks me that, and I'm like, I don't know. Didn't ask. Also, I just wanted to hashtag Dale Carnegie on that one.
Yes.
One of Dale
I didn't even
Carnegie's
know that was a
golden
Dale Carnegie thing. I think you told me that. I had posted something in LinkedIn, which I knew who Dale Carnegie was, but I'd never been familiar with any of his books or anything or any of his teachings. And I posted this thing and this guy goes, oh, I think that's a Dale Carnegie thing. I was like, I had no idea. And then Tracy goes, yeah, it really is. So see, those are the things. Like sometimes we don't even know. I had no idea. So surely there's other people that probably didn't either.
I think
golden principle number 4.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to the idea that even if you don't see what you're doing as strategic, there is a strategy behind it. And if a person analyzes it in such a way, like I love the quote by Jim Rohn, if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear, right? Data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, if it happens, if you do it enough to where you can find a commonality in it, you can make it strategic if you want it to, right? Just because you don't make it strategic doesn't mean that there is a strategy doesn't live behind it, right? You just aren't functioning from a place of strategy, right? But all that I was going to add to what you all were saying in the conversation, and I'm so grateful that you said something, Tracy. For you, practice makes permanent. But then you also gave the grace, and I'm so glad that you did that. There, you can change it, right? And so for me, I love talking about how a plan is a roadmap, not a guarantee. The destination doesn't change. There's more than one way, right? Sometimes you have to take a detour, but you can still get there. You can still have the impact, the value, the benefit of what you were trying to reach, right? And so for me, I hinge on the phrase, we get proficient through practice, right? Or practice increases our proficiency because there's usually more than one way to get there, right? And so the way that works for you may not work for me. The way that works for him may not work for her. However, we can still get to a desired end, right? What do we need? Like Tara said, what do we need to get there? And so if there are any other points, I definitely want us to have room to offer them. But if not, I've got our summary ready to rock and roll.
I think we're good. Sum up.
Cool. So one of the main things when we're talking about we're not meant to walk alone, right, is acknowledging that do it yourself doesn't mean do it alone. Community and audience aren't the same thing. So if you just want a whole bunch of people onlooking, you have an audience, right? There no level of effort, no responsibility towards you or anything that you have going on. But if you want support, if you want acknowledgement, if you want to ease your load, then do life in community and let people show up and function in their zones of genius, personally and professionally. Show up unapologetically, show up unapologetically. Still can't get it right, but you guys follow me, right? With your own values, missions, beliefs, right? Your own ideas. That's why you are you. That's what makes you are you. So don't apologize for the you that you are. Do your thing. And when you want to shift your you and your thing, guess who has control of doing that? You do. Diversity of thought and ideas is good. Differences are a benefit. Don't be afraid of them. It doesn't mean you have to make extreme and big personal changes. Welcoming them, though, may introduce you to a greater realm of living and opportunity because it allows you to have a greater level of understanding. Have a life and business council. Tracy talked so diligently about, hey, even in businesses, when you get to a certain size, you have a board, you have an advisory, right? The fact is, you can do that as a solopreneur. You can do that as a mom. You can do that as an uncle. You can do that as a sister, as a brother, as a friend. You have multiple people in your life and they all have a role. Tap into them. Have a life and business council. Also, know what you need so that you can take action to walk together. Invite people in. Don't be the one that always gives. running from an empty cup. Allow people, it is a gift to allow people to help you and to fill the voids that you have, right? And ultimately, as Tara said, one of our last major points was be genuinely interested in others. A little bit of acknowledgement goes a very long way. So if you want people to come to your party, show up for theirs every now and again.
You know what is awesome about this is, so I watched this movie on Disney Plus yesterday called Raya and the Last Dragon. It's something like that. And one of the characters is just constantly, they're trying to get these like dragon stones back to get them all united. And the one person, like everybody's fighting over them, right? These wars and everything. And the one is just like, we just need to give people gifts, right? Like just show up, give them a gift, they will give us. And you have to watch the movie to find out whether or not that works out. But this is the thing, like we have that ability, we have the ability to show up like that all the time of giving gifts, right? And allowing our network of people to give their gifts freely. This is what a community is about. And I think we talked, my favorite things we talked about today is kind of this like overarching concept of like being you. So having your unit and doing what you need and knowing what to ask for and all those things about you, which gives you the space to have the community, to not walk alone. And so there is this balance. It's not just saying like, I don't think about myself never, and I just like always think about others. It's a balance, it's a blend. And the way we get to not walk alone is to know those things and love those things about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we sometimes have to do the uncomfortable things, right? So we have to take the step. For those that it is uncomfortable, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just take the first step.
That's it.
And how much easier is it to take that first step when you're surrounded by people you know who can catch you if you fall, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you have them today. Everybody who's watching today, like, I would love if you guys could share in the comments, like, what do you have in this, your life board, your business board that allows you that space, that is that cushion for you to fall if you trip, right? Like, these are the people, and we would love, and like, what are you missing? Think about that. You might not want to share it in the comments, but think about what you're missing and look, is that there? Is that there? And I just wasn't allowing it in. I wasn't allowing myself to receive. We would love to hear anything you guys have to share about the topic today of you're not meant to walk alone, especially around your personal boards. And what about that works for you? And if you have any other examples too, please
share them.
We can't talk today. Please feel free to share those in the comments, because we have certain examples and you guys have different examples. And the more examples we can share, the more space we can create for other people to give it a first try. And if you guys need a panel of people who are very good at being pillows to support you, well, here we are.
We're here for it.
Reach out to us. Come and follow us. Subscribe to the channel. If you guys love these episodes, tell your friends about it. Do you guys have anything else you would like to say before we close out for today?
I think this was a beautiful one. It makes my heart so happy.
Yep.
Awesome. So you guys know. Yeah, I was going to say, we can't leave without letting you guys reminding you guys, be a human.
Be a human.